أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome. Let's just take a moment together to reflect on something truly profound from the Quran. It's this deeply personal call to become, well, whole in our surrender. To move beyond a faith that kind of just shows up for prayers and then disappears, and instead, to really let it into every single corner of our lives. So where do we even begin? Well, the journey really starts with understanding this core spiritual challenge, fragmentation. And what is that really? It's that feeling, of being a divided self. It's when the person who's praying feels like a completely different person from the one who's at work or the one who gets angry. It's called a quiet disease for a reason, because so often we don't even notice it's happening. And, the Quran is so brilliant in its structure. Right after it discusses hypocrisy and details our rituals, it brings us face to face with this very issue. It's as if it's saying, okay, now let's talk about the real challenge. We're confronted with the reality of a divided surrender, a life that feels like it's lived in all these separate, disconnected pieces. And let's be honest, this is what it can look like in our day-to-day lives, right? We might be spot on with our formal worship, but then what happens when our temper gets the best of us? We can surrender completely on the prayer mat, but do we carry that same spirit of surrender into our work, into our finances? We call out to God, but it's like in the back of our minds, our ego is always there trying to cut its own deal. And that, right there, is the heart of what a partial faith feels like. But here's the beautiful thing. The Quran doesn't just point out the problem and leave us there. No, it offers the cure. It builds up to this incredibly powerful, direct command and invitation, really, to become complete. And this is the verse at the very heart of it all, from Sūrah al-Baqarah. Listen to how direct this is. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu dukhulu fis-silmi kaffa, which means, O you who believe, enter into surrender completely. You see, it's not saying, hey, maybe try to surrender, or surrender some parts of yourself. Not at all. It's a call to enter into it entirely, all in. And really, the whole weight of this command, all of its power, rests on this one Arabic word, kafa. It means wholly, entirely, without leaving a single thing behind. The message couldn't be clearer, could it? Faith isn't some kind of buffet where we get to pick and choose the parts we like. It demands our whole being, every single part. Okay, so after this powerful call, the verse gives us a warning. And this is so important. It doesn't just tell us what to do, it also tells us how we mess up. It says, and do not follow the footsteps of Satan. And that phrase, footsteps, is absolutely key to understanding how we start to drift away from that wholeness we're striving for. The great spiritual master Ibn Arabi has this incredible insight here. He points out that this whole process of drifting away, it starts so subtly. It's not one giant leap away from our faith. No, it's footsteps. Just tiny little compromises, small adjustments we make here and there. And over time, all those little steps add up until, before we know it, this state of being fragmented, it just feels normal. And then there's this profound insight from the Sufi master al-Qushayri. He puts it in a way that just stops you in your tracks. He says, partial surrender is hidden rebellion. Wow. Think about that. From that inner, that batin perspective, holding any part of yourself back from God, well, it's a quiet act of rebellion. It's really just the ego digging in its heels, refusing to give up its little kingdom. And how do we justify this to ourselves? So often, it's just plain old procrastination, isn't it? We tell ourselves, yeah, I'll get to that. I'll become whole later. The Quran almost feels like it's speaking directly to us, asking, so what are you waiting for, exactly? Some dramatic sign to fall from the sky? The truth is already right here, in front of us, calling for our complete surrender, right now. Now, it's important to understand that this path to wholeness, it's not always a smooth ride. Not at all. The Quran then introduces this really challenging, but also incredibly transformative idea that our faith, our true faith, will be tested, and hardship is often the very tool God uses to purify it. I mean, listen to this next verse. It's so humbling. It asks us, do you think you will enter paradise without going through what those before you went through? And it goes on to say that even the prophets and the believers with them, they were hit with so much hardship that they were, and this is the word used, shaken. This completely reframes how we should see our own trials, doesn't it? They're not just punishments. They are a means of tazkiyah, a purification process designed to refine our faith and make it stronger. And here we get to the inner meaning, the batin, as explained so beautifully by Imam al-Ghazali.
He says that shaking, that trembling we feel when we're going through a tough time, it's not there to break us. It's actually there to purify our certainty. It's like a fire that burns away all the impurities until all that's left is a sincere, strong, resilient faith.
And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? A fragmented faith, one that's all compartmentalized, it's just going to shatter when real pressure comes along. But an integrated faith, a faith that is whole, that is kafa, that kind of faith is built to endure the shaking. Sure, it might bend, it might even tremble, but it will not break. So with all of this in mind, the invitation now is to turn inward. This isn't about some abstract theological concept. No, this is a deep, personal invitation to just look at our own hearts. So let's just pause and ask ourselves really honestly, where are you divided? Let that sink in for a moment. In what parts of your life are you one person and in other parts someone else entirely? Where does that split actually exist for you? And a second question, where does your obedience stop? At what point do you find yourself drawing a line in the sand? Where do you implicitly say to God, okay, this far is fine, but no further? This part of my life, my career, my money, my relationships, that's off limits. And finally, let's try a complete self-assessment. If we're really being honest with ourselves, if we take a full inventory, which rooms in our inner house have we not yet handed over the keys to? That right there, that's the real work of becoming whole. And so we end with this beautiful supplication, this munajat, a conversation from the heart. O Lord of wholeness, please gather our scattered loyalties, protect us from a partial faith, and make us truly whole in our surrender to you. Amen. This reflection was compiled with deep gratitude by Mir Ali Shah, just another seeker sharing through the Living the Wisdom of the Quran podcast. We humbly ask for forgiveness and for acceptance for any AI-related mispronunciations or any other errors that might have slipped in. Amin.